Good day, everybody. Brian here on October 8th. My first real video in 6 weeks. Been a while. Anyways, as I said, when I promised first week of October, I'd be getting relearning C++, 17, specifically for following the footsteps of HFT trading shops. And most of them are using C++ 17, and they are moving into 20. So I thought it'd be a good base to work from for 17. All right, so let's go through this. So the book here I've got here is called Beginning C++ from Novice to Professional. Came out in January 1st, 2018. Makes sense because you're working with 17. Um, and then I'm not going to go into the description. I'll put all the posts in my blog post. You'll find in the video description. So this looks like a really well-reviewed book, 80 ratings, 4.5, which is pretty strong. I've read through the commentary on the reviews. You see majority, 66%, really like this book at a 5, and then another 25% at 4. So I'm pretty confident that's a pretty good book. When you read the actual reviews, it's a pretty straight up book. It's not that complicated. Now, one other thing I like from this book is if you're not a complete programmer, apparently this book in the description says that you may be able to use this book as well if you have little programming experience. So this might be another good book for those that are new to the world of programming. Now, I haven't looked at C++ in about at least 10 or 15 years. I've been doing mostly Java and Python over that time frame. So, as I said again with C++, we're trying to follow in the same footsteps as close as possible to the high-paying HFT trading shops. I have verified just in the last few days that there are jobs out there still. The pay scales have come down a lot in 2024 as more and more people are getting laid off in the field, but there's still the occasional high-paying field. One in London that paid over 2 million, and the asset class of interest is usually majority in options and futures. So, in coming days, I'll probably talk about more of the my chosen broker, Canon Trading, that supports both futures and options, not just futures only, like with a lot of the bigger ones like AMP and whatever else out of the States. So Canon's been around for a very long time. They're very well received. So I'll be focusing on that. I'll be looking in their APIs as well. So as I said, we're going to follow the closest footsteps as possible to HFT for career. It's probably one of the most lucrative programming fields to be in out there. So this is a good book to start with if you're new to C++. Also, just to let you know, there are programming examples here on the C++ 17 GitHub repository from Apress, the publisher. That exists as well. So let's go through the book just to give you an idea on the content. So obviously, C++, it's a modern C++ versus version 11, which is more classic C++. It's good to know those, the standard libraries, all the programming concepts, the simple ones. So that's probably where the beginners can pick up. If not, you may need to double down on this area to get comfortable with. A good starting point is definitely Python, and then come back into C++ if you're fairly new and not being able to pick up these basic programming concepts. And then it gets into the numbers and the different types of data types on numbers, and so on. And then the different types of data, for variables, integral, integers, and so on. Um, and all the different basics there, including the size of from the world of C++, all the different using standard library, all the floating mathematical and all that. So from there, you get the fundamental data types. That's really where C++ shines in the world of Linux and Unix. And that's where a lot of the programming is needed. And when it comes to HFT, is in Linux and Linux and Unix, like a BSD. Um, then there's the basic decisions and all that. And then you get into the more advanced C++ stuff, like the pointers and references for memory types and memory handling. That's one of the big things you need to understand when it comes to C++, string manipulation as well, um, defining your functions, everything in the world of HFT. I've got the book out let me just show you that. So I put it together a few months ago about learning C++. Just go under the quantlabsnet.com and to get the book, just go into the learn tab and just sign up, and then you'll get my book on the base. Well, it's the overall perspective of what goes into an HFT trading system, and it's enterprise as well. So it covers all the topics, but don't expect to be having a complete end-to-end HFT trading platform from that. It just gives you the concepts and just some code snippets and what to look for, but to really understand the basics here and pulling it all together is going through a book like this and really understanding it. Obviously, down the road, there are more advanced books on C++, very specifically for Linux kernel, network and algos and all that. That's where you specifically need to delve more into the high frequency trading stuff. All right, so back to the memory handling, all this inline functions, function overloading, recursion. These are pretty well tricky HFT related interview questions you may get, but they're much, much more advanced than what you're seeing here in this kind of book. Function programming, template programming is another area that's kind of used quite a bit in HFT. But once again, this is just the basics, really. It's not really giving you the advanced concept. This is more of the high level stuff. Program file pre-processing can be important. Um, so defining your own data types as well. I'm sure one thing you have to understand about HFT shops is they have developed their own trading libraries in house. Rarely do they use any third party, especially the bigger ones. They don't need third parties. So there's going to be different divisions within an HFT firm that will have specific types of areas of programming with a complete system or set of systems. Like Rentech would be one example of that. Citadel as well, because they have their own technical firm that where Citadel Securities uses as a client for Citadel Securities, and Citadel Technologies is the company that will develop all the technology for Citadel as well. Just using a bigger trading firm. Um, so again, this can get pretty hairy quickly. This is one of the reasons why a lot of people don't like C++, but if you want to get into the world of high frequency trading, you got to get to a point where you're at mastery. Because one thing I have read multiple times is when you get into interviews, a lot of the smaller boutique trading firms are started by programmers, and they're going to be really highly educated ones, specifically ones from MIT, and the like. And they're the founders. And when you get into one of these firms, it doesn't matter what kind of way to learn the interviewing. Listen, if you're not naturally a C++ gifted developer, you're not going to get past these CEOs and founders because they can come up with their own questions right on the fly, and you can't practice those. And they're going to be testing you on your expert knowledge. So you got to go through the hard work to get to that point. There's no ends around it. I don't care who you go to for your resume overview and all that. You got to go through and learn the hard way using classic HFT with C++. Also, Python's going to be a big area that you need to know as well. And I could go on. People may not want to believe it. You can't use AI code generation for this either. You got to be able to hand code it as well because you will be tested live coding, and that's going to be difficult if you don't demonstrate that. And I have to also tell you, once you get into a poo-poo list with a recruiter, you're dead in the water. You're not going to get another interview at one of the larger firms. A lot of the recruiters out there will use uh, their ban list or they have lists of people that they will not touch again. for a variety of reasons when you get fired, when you do something wrong. So you got to be very careful and really know the coding very well and have an Ivy League school. As I'm getting off there, as operator overloading can be used as well. Inheritance, can't say if it's used a lot in HFT shops because they're trying to um, minimize their computing cycles. So the less fewer computing cycles they use, the better. So this is important to know as part of the recruiting process. Definitely there. But there's just so many different styles of C++ coding that you can use, but it's always good to know with um, the classic inheritance, polymorphism. This is like objection or objective oriented programming, or OOP. I'm not sure if this is used as much in the world of programming, in the world of trading, because it just takes up extra cycles of memory that a lot of these trading firms are trying to minimize. Runtime errors and exceptions. This is the fun part of C++. Debugging C++ can be a nightmare, and all that. So I'm going to show you a demo of Visual Studio and what I'm planning to do as part of the development environment in a minute. All right, so that's tricky there. Class templates is another one. Um, move some semantics as well. First class functions as well. Containers and algorithms is obviously the big one for HFT with the algo side. And that's it. So I'm gonna leave it at that. So let's get into the development now. Now, in terms of development, um, what I want to show you is I'm using currently again October 8th right now, uh, 2024. So the current version that I'm using as an IDE to really just make life easier is just, if you're on Windows, stay on Windows. If you're on Mac, I hate to tell you, I think you could be kind of challenged working with real Linux and Unix. My experience on Mac has been not very good, especially for C++. There is Xcode, but that doesn't mean it's going to be necessarily used widely in the world of enterprise for HFT firms. I could be wrong on that, but just generally, find Mac is either far behind the compatibility of C++ and Linux and all that, even though it's built around supposedly Linux. One thing you have to understand about Mac OS, it's BSD. It's open. It's built off of Open BSD. So I personally would have somebody either work in 100% in Linux and use a decent um, IDE, like what was suggested in this book here was Code Blocks. I've used it; it's fine. That'll keep you in the world 100% with C++. If you want to be a little more sophisticated, yeah, you would want to use Visual Studio, not Visual Code. Visual Studio has much better debugging capabilities than any other IDE out there, including Visual Code. And also, you can translate everything in Python as well in the same IDE with Visual Studio. And the other thing is you can use like here's with Visual Code, and I'm using this on a Windows subsystem Linux, a WSL or WSL2. So if you want to get closer to Linux, you can do that. And I haven't really tried it in Visual Studio. I'm sure you can easily connect into a WSL on Windows to be somewhat similar to a Linux. Now, the distribution that's usually used in HFT shops are going to be Fedora, Red Hat. And why is that? The history of Red Hat, how they got big was basically Goldman Sachs used Red Hat a lot years ago. That's how Red Hat grew, and out of that came out Red Hat Enterprise Linux, and then Fedora, and all that. So if you can use Fedora as your Linux, that might be a wise move to be, as I said, closer to um, to the HFT shops. And then as you get more advanced, you probably want to be on a Unix like distribution like OpenBSD. All right, so I've got here a simple hello world. I mean, it's simple. You just go file new project, and under here you'll see C++. So you can start from nothing from scratch and just do this. Prints a hello world by default. So that's what I've chosen. Here you got your standard see out or print out for your output, and you just run it. You can see here, hello world, boom, 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 done. All right, so that is that. So again, this is the book I'm using. Um, this one, Beginning C++, from novice to professional. That's what I'm going to use as of today, October 8th. If you want to follow my progress, just go to the quantlabsnet.com tab. Make sure you get in there on my newsletter. I'll be rolling out some new courses, and then at the end of in the next couple of weeks to months, I'll be converting my entire store from U.S. dollar um, to British pounds. So you'll right there, once that conversion's done, you'll see a 30% increase on everything. And I'll be stripping out a lot of my um, product and service options to basically one. It's not gonna be cheap. So if you want to follow along, now's the time to get in. Other than that, thanks for watching. Have a good day.